Over time, life teaches you that giving too much can leave you empty. For Sigma females, it's not about choosing to become cold, it's about survival. Every betrayal, every broken promise, every person who takes more than they give slowly builds walls around your heart. These walls aren't built from bitterness, but out of necessity to protect what's left of you. You stop expecting others to be what you need them to be, and instead, you reclaim your power. It's not coldness, it's clarity. And from there, your journey into self-preservation begins. It always starts with that first deep betrayal. Maybe it was a best friend who swore loyalty, but turned their back on you when you needed them most. Maybe it was a romantic partner who promised forever but treated you like an option. Or maybe it was family, the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, who instead made you feel like you had to earn their love. No matter where it came from, that first betrayal cuts deep. It's not just about losing trust in that one person. It's about realizing that trust itself is fragile, that people can smile at you, talk about love and loyalty, and still walk away like you meant nothing. At first, you're in shock. You replay everything in your mind, trying to figure out what you did wrong. Did you miss the signs? Were you too blind, too forgiving, too naive? You question yourself more than you question them. Then comes the pain, the kind that keeps you up at night, the kind that makes you wonder if you'll ever trust the same way again. You feel the sting of every lie, every broken promise, every moment that now feels fake. And finally, the lesson sets in. You realize that not everyone has the same heart as you, that just because you are loyal doesn't mean others will be. Just because you love deeply doesn't mean they do. That's when something inside you shifts. You start building walls, not because you want to, but because you have to. You tell yourself, never again. And from that moment on, you are different. You watch people more closely. You listen, not just to their words, but to what their actions are telling you. You don't give your trust so easily anymore. That first betrayal, it doesn't just hurt, it changes you. And the worst part, once you've been through it, you can never unlearn what you now know. You move differently, you love differently, you see the world through different eyes. At first, you believe people when they say they're sorry. You want to believe them. You think, maybe they didn't mean to hurt me. Maybe they truly regret what they did. So you forgive. You give them another chance. But then, it happens again and again. The same careless words, the same selfish actions, and after every mistake, they come back with the same tired apologies. I didn't mean it. I was just stressed. You know I love you. But here's what they don't realize. Apologies mean nothing without change. Words are easy. Actions require effort. And what you begin to notice is that while they are quick to say sorry, they are slow, if not completely unwilling, to actually change. That's when it clicks. These people don't apologize because they regret hurting you. They apologize because they don't like the consequences. They don't want to lose access to you. They don't want to deal with your disappointment. They just want things to go back to normal so they can do it all over again. And that's when something inside you hardens. You stop listening to apologies. You stop believing in words. Instead, you watch. Does their behavior change? Do they actually try to be better? Or do they expect you to just get over it, like always? And what you find is that most people don't change. They just get better at making excuses. So, you stop giving second chances so easily. You stop explaining why their words don't mean anything to you anymore, because at the end of the day, you've learned something important. The right people don't keep hurting you and expecting forgiveness. The right people don't need to apologize over and over. They get it right the first time. And if someone is always saying sorry but never showing change, That's not an apology. That's manipulation. And you're done falling for it. You don't wake up one day and decide to be cold. It happens slowly, over time. It happens after disappointment, after heartbreak, after betrayal. At first, you try to stay the same. You try to hold on to your warmth, your kindness, your ability to trust. You still want to believe that people mean well, that love is enough, that honesty will be met with honesty in return. But then, reality teaches you otherwise. People take advantage of your kindness. They mistake your understanding for weakness. They assume that just because you're patient, they can push your boundaries. And every time you let them back in, every time you forgive too easily, you realize you're just setting yourself up to get hurt again. So eventually, something inside you changes. You stop explaining yourself. You stop giving endless chances. You stop expecting people to treat you the way you treat them. Not because you don't care anymore, but because you care too much to keep allowing the same pain into your life. And that's when others start calling you cold. They say you've changed. They say you're distant, detached, maybe even heartless. But what they don't understand is that this isn't coldness. It's self-preservation. You've simply learned that not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves to know your thoughts, your struggles, your emotions. You start keeping more to yourself. You become selective with who you trust, who you let in, who you even respond to. And at first it feels strange. It feels unnatural, because deep down you're not cold. You just don't want to be burned anymore. But over time, it becomes your normal. You move differently. You protect your peace. You no longer give your energy to people who drain you. And while the world may see you as cold, you know the truth. You are not heartless. You are just someone who has learned, through pain and experience, that in a world full of users and takers, the only way to survive is to be careful with your warmth. One of the hardest pills to swallow is realizing that the world doesn't always reward honesty, loyalty, or authenticity. Instead, you watch as fake people rise while real ones struggle. At first, you think life is fair. You believe that being genuine will bring genuine results. You think that if you work hard, if you are honest, if you treat people well, you will be treated the same way in return. But then, reality slaps you in the face. You see the ones who lie, manipulate, and pretend getting ahead. You watch as they charm their way into friendships, relationships, promotions, and admiration. You notice how people are drawn to the illusion, how they crave the ones who tell them what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. And you're just there, watching, shaking your head, wondering why the world works this way. At first, it frustrates you. You ask yourself, why do people love the fake and overlook the real? Why do they support those who deceive while ignoring those who are honest? You start questioning if you should change, if maybe you should play the game too. But then something shifts. You realize you could never be like them, even if you tried. You weren't built to manipulate. You weren't made to fake emotions or pretend to be someone you're not. And so, instead of trying to fit in, you step back. You withdraw. You stop trying to prove yourself in a world that prefers illusions over reality. And that's when people start calling you cold. They say you're distant, that you're unapproachable. But the truth is, you just don't have the energy for fakeness anymore. You'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who don't even know what real loyalty looks like. So, you choose silence over forced smiles. You choose authenticity over popularity. You choose peace over drama. And while the fake ones keep winning their temporary battles, you stay in your lane, knowing that in the long run, the real ones always win where it truly matters. Have you ever noticed how the world treats kindness like an open invitation to be used? How people assume that because you are patient, you will tolerate disrespect. That because you are understanding, you will accept being treated unfairly. At first, you think kindness will be recognized and appreciated. You assume that because you move with good intentions, others will do the same. You believe that when you show up for people, they will show up for you in return. But then, reality proves you wrong. You start to see a pattern. The more you give, the more people expect. The more you forgive, the less they value your forgiveness. The more you go out of your way for others, the less they seem to acknowledge your effort. And then comes the moment that truly changes you, the moment you realize that your kindness is being mistaken for weakness. It happens when someone crosses a boundary you never thought needed to be explained. It happens when you help someone who suddenly disappears the moment you need them. It happens when you defend someone, only to be left standing alone when the situation turns against you. At first, you feel hurt. You wonder if you were too nice, too open, too willing to see the good in people. You tell yourself, maybe I should stop being this way. But then, you realize something even deeper. It's not that kindness is the problem. It's who you've been kind to. So you start making changes. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve your time. You stop overextending yourself for those who wouldn't do the same for you. You learn to be selective with your energy, your words, your presence. Once upon a time, you believed in forever. You thought love was unbreakable, that when someone said they cared, they meant it for life. You gave your heart freely, trusting that if you loved deeply, you would be loved the same way in return. But life taught you otherwise. You watched people make promises they never intended to keep. You experienced relationships that started passionately but faded just as quickly. You saw how easy it was for people to walk away, even after swearing they never would. At first, it hurts. You take it personally. You wonder if you did something wrong, if you weren't enough, if you should have tried harder. You spend nights replaying conversations in your head, searching for the moment it all fell apart. Then, one day, you realize the truth. Love doesn't always last, and not everyone who loves you will stay. You start to see love differently. You stop expecting it to be permanent. Instead of believing in fairy tales, you accept that most love comes with an expiration date. Some people are only meant to be in your life for a season, to teach you something, to help you grow, and then they leave. And so you adapt. You still allow yourself to feel, but not in the reckless way you once did. You love with caution. You keep a part of yourself guarded. You no longer attach your happiness to another person's presence. People notice this shift. They say you're different, that you don't seem as open, as vulnerable, as hopeful about love as you once were. Some call you cold. Some say you have trust issues. But the truth is you're just realistic now. You no longer mistake feelings for forever. You understand that love is beautiful, but it's also unpredictable. And because of that, you don't chase, you don't beg, you don't cling. If someone stays, they stay. If they leave, you let them. Because now, you know, love is a choice, not a guarantee. And you will never again be the only one choosing. There comes a point where you just stop explaining. Not because you don't have anything to say, but because you're tired of saying it. At first, you try. You try to help people understand you, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you see the world. You assume that if you explain yourself clearly, people will get it. They will see your perspective. They will realize that you're not cold, not difficult, not distant. You're just different. But over time, you realize something. Most people don't actually want to understand. They just want you to fit into their expectations. They want you to be easier to read, easier to control, easier to label. And when you don't fit neatly into their idea of who you should be, they get frustrated. They call you complicated. They say you're too closed off. They make you feel like it's your fault for not being more like them. So, you try harder. You explain your need for space, your dislike for small talk. your preference for deep connections over shallow interactions. You explain why you don't tolerate fake friendships, why you value your independence, why you choose silence over unnecessary drama. But no matter how many times you explain, they don't listen. They don't hear you. Or worse, they hear you but still insist that you're wrong for being the way you are. And that's when you stop. You stop justifying yourself. You stop defending your choices. You stop wasting energy trying to be understood by people who have already made up their minds about you. Instead, you let them believe what they want. If they think you're cold, fine. If they think you're distant, fine. If they think you're too independent, too quiet, too hard to figure out, fine. Because at the end of the day, you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be yourself. And the right people, the ones who truly see you, they won't need endless explanations, they'll just get it. People admire your strength. They look at you and see someone who never breaks, never complains, never asks for help. They call you independent, resilient, unstoppable. But what they don't see is the weight you carry. At first, you take pride in being strong. You like knowing that you can handle things on your own, that you don't need to rely on anyone. You push through challenges, wipe your own tears, and keep moving forward, even when it hurts. But over time, strength starts to feel less like a choice and more like a responsibility. People assume you're fine, even when you're not. They expect you to be okay, even when everything inside you is screaming for a break. No one checks on the strong one, because they assume you can handle it. And even when you're drowning, you stay silent, because you don't want to be seen as weak. And that's the hardest part. You've been strong for so long that people forget you're human. They forget that you have moments of doubt, moments of exhaustion, moments where you just want someone to take the weight off your shoulders, just for a little while. But when you finally do open up, when you finally admit that you're tired, the response is disappointing. People either don't take you seriously, or they're so used to you being the strong one that they don't know how to support you. Some even distance themselves because they preferred the version of you that never needed anything. So, what do? You go back to being strong, not because you want to, but because you have no other choice. And that's when people start calling you cold. They say you're distant, that you don't let anyone in. But what they don't realize is that strength isn't just about endurance, it's about survival. You didn't choose to be this way. Life made you this way. Because when you've spent your whole life carrying your own weight, you stop expecting anyone else to help, and eventually you stop asking. Being independent is something you've always valued. You take care of yourself, handle your own problems, and never expect anyone to rescue you. You've learned through experience that the only person you can truly count on is yourself. At first, this mindset feels empowering. You don't need validation. You don't wait around for people to help you. You move through life knowing that, no matter what happens, you will find a way to handle it on your own. But over time, you begin to realize the hidden cost of self-reliance. People assume you don't need them. They see your strength and mistake it for not wanting support. They never check in because you always seem fine. They never offer help because they assume you'll figure it out like you always do. And eventually, you start feeling like you exist in a world where you have to carry everything alone. And the worst part? You get so used to it that even when someone does offer help, you struggle to accept it. You don't know how to lean on others because you've been conditioned to stand alone. You don't ask for support because you don't want to be a burden. You've spent so much time being self-sufficient that the idea of depending on someone, even just a little, feels foreign. And then, people start calling you cold. They don't understand why you don't open up more, why you don't lean on them the way they lean on you, why you don't break down, even when life is heavy. But what they fail to realize is that being self-reliant isn't about wanting to be alone. It's about not having had a choice. You had to become strong because people let you down. You had to become independent because no one showed up when you needed them. And once you've learned to survive on your own, it's hard to unlearn that. So you keep moving, keep handling things, keep being the strong one. And if people call you distant, cold, or unapproachable, so be it. Because in the end, you'd rather be self-reliant than risk needing someone who won't be there. Vulnerability is often seen as a strength, the ability to open up, to trust, to love without hesitation. But when you give without boundaries, you risk being taken advantage of. For Sigma females, this lesson comes painfully. You once trusted freely, loved openly, and shared your deepest self, believing that true connection would be reciprocated. But too many times, your openness was met with betrayal or disappointment. People took advantage of your kindness, mistook your genuine heart for weakness, and drained you emotionally without giving anything back. That's when you realized vulnerability without limits isn't a gift. It's an invitation for others to exploit your softness. So you learned to guard your heart, to set boundaries where once there were none. You stopped giving your trust so easily. Now, when you open up, it's to those who have earned it. You've learned that being selective doesn't mean you're cold. It means you value yourself enough to protect your emotional energy. People may call you distant or aloof, but the truth is, you're simply wiser. You understand that vulnerability is powerful, but only when shared with those who will nurture it, not take advantage of it. And that makes all the difference. So, what's the real cost of becoming cold? It's the loneliness of not settling, the exhaustion of always being the strong one, the pain of knowing you can never go back to who you used to be. But here's the truth. You are not cold. You are not heartless. You are simply a Sigma female who has learned the hard way that in a world full of illusions, being real comes at a cost. And if that cost is being misunderstood, so be it. You are not here to please. You are here to live on your terms. If you found this video relatable, hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and drop a comment below. Have you experienced this transformation? Let's talk.